I grew up on a farm in North Dakota, and I used to see the airplanes flying overhead, and didn't have really a clue what they were, except they were like a bird, right? And first ride was in a T-33, actually. First ride I ever took in an airplane, I was about 18, I think, at the time. And anyway, we took off, and when we got up, and the colonel tells me we're going to land in this little spot down there. I look down and I see a little bitty strip like that, and I wasn't clever enough to realize that when you get up real high, things get small, right? Big things are low, but little things are high, and all I saw was that little bitty strip down there, and I thought there's no way he's going to land this airplane on a little bitty black thing. But of course, it got bigger when we descended. And then on the touchdown, it was all icy, and the airplane started going every which way. And he was screaming and yelling and saying, we're gonna wreck this, this is horrible and everything. And I kept thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And all I wanted to do was see that airplane go off the runway and through the snowbank, because it was nice and blended, and I thought it would go quite a ways before it came to a stop. But he eventually straightened it out. We got back, and he ripped his wings off his chest and threw them on the desk and said, that's it, I'm done flying. And I looked at those set of wings down there, and I thought, wow, is that all you need to go fly? You just need that little bitty thing, you just slap it on your chest, and away you go. And that moment on, I looked at how do you get the little set of wings and put them on your jacket.
I was going to say, did you take those wings? And
oh, no, I didn't. I didn't want to, I didn't know if those are good wings or bad wings. Yeah. Actually, I was working on the 117 airplane, and was out at the ranch, and Dave Zuchel calls up on a secure line, and I knew him from an F-86 days when I'd flown his F-86, and so anyway, the phone rings, and it's a secure line, and he said, hey, there's a Zuchel on the line for you, and so I go pick up the phone. And I said, how did you get this number? He said, oh, I've got it, I've had this number back in the Greenwire days. And I said, really? And I thought, well, they don't change nothing around here. Anyway, he asked me, and that was like Reno week. And it was kind of like Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday. And it was right here in Van Nuys, and he said, hey, we're having a race at Reno this weekend. Ever been to Reno? And I said, no. And he says, you want to fly an airplane up there, race an airplane? I said, yeah, it'd be fun.
Had you ever raced before?
No. And so I came down to Van Nuys here, and Wiley Sanders owned, it was Genie, which is Galloping Ghost. And so Wiley came flying in his G2.5 airplane, and he gets out, and we're sitting down at the table, and Zuchel is on one side, I'm on the other, and Wiley's over here. And Wiley's the slow-speaking Southern gentleman type guy, right? And he looks at me and he says, so you want to fly my airplane, huh? And I said, yeah. He said, so how much time you have in a Mustang? I said, I've never flown one. And he looks at me and he says, well, how much time you got in a tail dragger? And I said, oh, I've never flown that either. He says, well, how much time you got in the big motor, big recip? I said, oh, I have never flown one of those either. And then he looks at me, and then he gets up and he's going to the phone to call the real pilot, right? And Zuchel looks at me and he says, quick, tell him something, because he's calling somebody else. And I knew he was going to call the real guy somewhere. So anyway, I said, hey, Wiley. And he says, what? I said, don't you have another question or something? Can we talk about this a bit more? And he looks at me and says, you been in any races? And I said, no. And then he was just about to drop the quarter in. And I said, well, I did have a race one time. And he said, what was that? I said, I raced a big 21, 800 miles across Laos. And he looks at me, and then he came down and sat down. We talked about Air Force flying for a bit, and then he got up, went to his G2.5, and left us with the airplane.
And so you flew to Reno and raced?
Yeah, I flew to Reno, and I had a half an hour in the airplane. And anyway, I got to Reno, and funny thing is that next morning, I'm standing by the airplane out on the ramp. I'd never been to Reno before, and Phil Barber comes out there from the Reno paper, and he comes over to me, and and looks at me, so you're going to fly Genie? We're sitting beside Genie, and Zusha was working on the motor at the time. He says, you're going to fly Genie? And I said, yeah. He said, so you ever raced at Reno before? I said, no, huh? He says, how much time do you have on that airplane? I said, I flew it up here. And he said, so you like a half an hour? And I said, yeah, something like that.